In 1803, the United States gained about 827,000 square miles of land for $15 million in a deal between the United States and France. This transaction is known as the Louisiana Purchase, through which the United States gained land to the west of the Mississippi River. Following the Louisiana Purchase, President Thomas Jefferson commissioned the Corps of Discovery, led by Meriwether Lewis and co-led by William Clark, to explore the search for a route to the Pacific Ocean. Sacagawea was a Native American who accompanied Lewis and Clark between 1804 and 1806. Sacagawea acted as an interpreter, provided direction, and shared knowledge of natural foods and medicines. Please place a dot on the timeline below on the year of the Louisiana Purchase. Now obviously you can't really put a dot on the timeline through the screen, so for this question this will be to pick out where the dot would go. So let me give you a chance now if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So the instructions say to place a dot on the timeline below on the year of the Louisiana Purchase, and we know that that was 1803. So here's 1800, here's 1805, so as long as you saw that the dot should go somewhere around here, consider that you got the right answer. Which of the following is supported by the data on the graph? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. Okay, so let's look at these answer choices one by one. So the first one says between 2016 and 2017, GDP growth decreased. Now we know that GDP growth is over here, and we know that the years are down here. And for this answer choice, while I'm evaluating A, I'm going to draw these bars on here, and we're only concerned with what's happening between these two bars, right? Whatever's happening over here, we're not concerned with right now, and whatever's happening over here, we're not concerned with right now. We just want to look at what's happening between 2016 and 2017. So we see that the blue line right here is increasing, right? And we know that if we had a little stick figure person and the stick figure person started here and the person just walked on the line, you can see that the stick figure person is going uphill here. So now let's evaluate B. So B says between 2017 and 2019, GDP growth increased. So again, I'm just going to focus on what's happening between 2017 and 2019. So while I look at B, I'm not going to worry about what's happening over here on the graph, and I'm not going to worry about what's happening down here. All I'm concerned with is what's going on between 2017 and 2019. And we see that the line is going down, which means decrease. And again, if we imagine a little stick figure person, the stick figure person would be going downhill if the stick figure person walked on the line. So now let's look at answer choice C. So C says between 2015 and 2016, GDP growth increased. So I'm going to focus on what's happening between 2015 and 2016. And when I look at the line here, I see that the blue line increases between 2015 and 2016, right? And again, one way to think about it is if we had a little stick figure person and the stick figure person was just going to follow the line here, the stick figure person would be going uphill. So C is the correct answer here. For the years listed in the table, what was the mean annual change? Please round your answer to the nearest hundredth and write your answer in the box below. So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. Okay, so let's talk about how to do this question. So we want to find the mean annual change. So what I'm going to do is start by adding up all of these numbers here. So I have my negative 5.65. So what I'm going to do for adding negative 0.84 is I'm just going to do minus 0.84. Because if I do plus negative 0.84, it's the same as just doing minus 0.84. And next I'm going to add 0.66 and lastly 0.62. So in my calculator I do negative 5.65 minus 0.84 plus 0.66 plus 0.62, and that gives me negative 5.21. Now, the last thing that I'm going to do here is count up the number of numbers that I have. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different numbers. So I'm going to divide this by 4. Now, in my calculator, I do negative 5.21 divided by 4, and the answer, when I round to the nearest hundredth, is negative 1.30. So how did I round it to the nearest hundredth? Well, I got in my calculator negative 1.3025. Now, 3 is in the 10th spot, the 0 right here is in the 100th spot, and the 2 right here is in the 1000th spot. So I know that 0 is in the 100th place, so I look to the number beside the 0 to the right, and I want to ask myself, is this number less than 5? And it is, so I round down. So in other words, I just leave this as negative 1.30. Now, if this 2, instead of a 2, we had a 5 or greater, what I would do then is I would round up and we'd have negative 1.31. But that's not the case here because the number to the right of my 0 in the 100th place is less than 5, so I just leave this as negative 1.30. In the 2024 U.S. presidential election in New Jersey, the Republican presidential candidate received 46.06% of the vote. On the other hand, the Democratic presidential candidate received 51.97% of the vote. In red counties, the majority of voters voted for the Republican candidate, whereas in blue counties, the majority voted for the Democratic candidate. The capital of New Jersey is Trenton. Trenton is located in Mercer County. In Mercer County, 65.88% of voters voted for the Democratic candidate. Which county on the map is most likely Mercer County, New Jersey? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. So the key thing to see here is that it says that in blue counties, the majority voted for the Democratic candidate. Now we know that Trenton is located in Mercer County and that the majority of voters in Mercer County voted for the Democratic candidate. So A, C, and D are red counties, but B is a blue county. So the answer here is B, County B. This video's champion shoutout comes from a test taker who says, "Just wanted to say thank you for your videos. I started watching in November 2024, and at that time, up until recently, my circumstances prevented me from getting my GED. The last 2 months, I was able to take some classes to go with watching your videos and was finally able to take the tests. I passed all 4 tests on the first try between July 23rd and August 4th. RLA 166, Social Studies 163, Math 182, and Science 171. And those are very, very good scores. And this is an example of a test taker who persevered and finally finished the test, and someday you'll be done too." Which of the following is supported by the tables? Is it A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this one out, take all the time you need, and then whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. Okay, so let's look at the answer choices one by one until we find the correct one. So A says, from 2005 through 2009, both the world's rural and urban population decreased. So let's look first at the world urban population. So this is 2005 and this is 2009. So if we had a stick figure person start here in 2005 and go towards 2009, the stick figure person would be going up to 2009. Right? So we know that from 2005 to 2009, the world urban population increased. Now, what about the world rural population? So here is 2005 and here's 2009. So if we do the same thing, if we start with a stick figure person and we have the stick figure person walk towards 2009, we would see that the stick figure person would be going down. And we know that the world rural population decreased between 2005 and 2009. So A is incorrect because they both didn't decrease. We know that world urban population increased, whereas world rural population decreased. Now what about B? Well, B says from 2005 through 2009, the world's urban population increased and the world's rural population decreased. Well, we know that this is correct, so B is the correct answer here. Which of the following is the best inference we can make from the cartoon and text? The cartoon above depicts President Teddy Roosevelt in robes holding William H. Taft on his shoulder, while Taft is depicted wearing a crown. In the middle of the three men shown at the edge of the platform is Vice President Charles Fairbanks, who served under President Roosevelt as vice president after the pair won the 1904 presidential election. Despite Fairbanks desiring the presidency in 1908, Roosevelt selected Taft as his successor to run for president. So now would be a good time if you'd like to pause the video, take all the time you need with this, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll talk about it. So what can sometimes help for inference questions like this one is to go through the answer choices one by one and eliminate answer choices that you don't think are correct until you find the one that is. So if we look at A here, President Roosevelt had a strained relationship with Taft and held different viewpoints. Now, the text doesn't come right out and tell us if they had a strained relationship and if they held different viewpoints, so we'll have to read between the lines here. And we can start by thinking about what we do know about Taft. Now, we know that in the cartoon, Taft is depicted on President Teddy Roosevelt's shoulder. And we also know that Fairbanks wanted the presidency in 1908, but Roosevelt picked Taft as his successor. So, President Roosevelt had a strained relationship with Taft. Well, to me, it seems like Fairbanks and President Roosevelt probably had the strained relationship because Fairbanks wanted to run for president, but Roosevelt picked Taft instead. So it almost seems like President Roosevelt had a good relationship with Taft and had a strained relationship with Fairbanks. Now, again, the text doesn't come out and say this, so we have to read between the lines a little bit, but I'm going to take A out here because we know that Fairbanks wanted the presidency, but Roosevelt picked Taft. So what about B here? After initially selecting Taft as his successor, Roosevelt changed his mind and picked Fairbanks instead for the presidential election in 1908. Now, when I read this text here, to me, it doesn't seem like this is what happened, right? The text doesn't tell us anything about Roosevelt changing his mind, and it seems like from the picture here, where we see that Taft is depicted wearing a crown, and we see that Fairbanks is off here in the background. So it doesn't seem to me that Roosevelt changed his mind and went with Fairbanks instead, so I'm going to take B out here. So what about C? President Roosevelt declined to invite Fairbanks to his cabinet meetings and seldom sought his advice. Well, again, in the last sentence here, it tells us that Fairbanks desired the presidency, but Roosevelt picked Taft instead. So if we read between the lines here, it seems like it could be true that Roosevelt didn't invite Fairbanks to his cabinet meetings, and he didn't go to Fairbanks for his advice. So I'm going to say that C is the best inference here, and C is the correct answer. But what about D? So why is D not the best inference here? President Roosevelt was enthusiastic about having Fairbanks as his running mate in the 1904 election. Well, and again, the key with these inference questions is that we have to read between the lines a little bit here. But in this case here, we know that when Fairbanks desired the presidency, Roosevelt didn't pick him, he picked Taft instead. So if we read between the lines here, maybe Roosevelt was never all that enthusiastic about having Fairbanks as his running mate, even going back to 1904. And again, the key here is that we have to infer this because the text doesn't come right out and say it. So the best inference here is C. C is the correct answer.
Tommy, what do you want to help teach?
The circle graph shows the percent of the United States population for 6 different generations based on data from UN World Population Prospects 2024. The table above shows the Pew Research Center's generation definitions. According to the circle graph, which generations make up the 2 largest populations in the United States? Is the answer A, B, C, or D? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, try to figure this one out, take all the time you need, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. So when we look at the circle graph here, what we see is that it's 21.8% for millennials and 20.9% for Gen Z. So the answer here is C, Which generations make up the two largest populations in the United States? It's millennials and Gen Z. So C is the correct answer here. So the next question is on the screen. Which document did the above excerpt come from? Is it the Declaration of Independence, the Treaty of Versailles, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the Treaty of Paris? So now's your chance, if you'd like to pause the video, take all the time you need with this, try to figure it out, and whenever you're ready, just unpause the video and we'll go over it. Now, what I see here is that the excerpt starts off by saying His Britannic Majesty, and we know that there are two documents that have to do with either the British King or Great Britain. So based off the fact that the excerpt starts with His Britannic Majesty, and two of the summaries mention either the British King or Great Britain, I'm going to assume that the answer here is either the Declaration of Independence or the Treaty of Paris. So I'm going to take B and C out right off the bat. Now, which one is it? Well, when we read this, we don't see any mention of the king, and we don't see grievances or like a list of complaints or anything like that. So the answer here is the Treaty of Paris, and that's a treaty between Great Britain and the United States, and this ended the American Revolutionary War, also known as the American War of Independence. So the correct answer here is D, Treaty of Paris.